Formula 1 2005 is an officially licensed racing game that was developed by Studio Liverpool and published by Sony Computer Entertainment for the PlayStation 2 back in 2005. And this game follows on from the success of Formula 1 2004 that was released a year prior to it, and carries on a lot of the same gameplay elements and aesthetics that made the predecessor very popular, as the gameplay features a lot of various modes, even to a career mode where the concept allows players to work their way through various Formula 1 teams over the course of a 5-year period. So they start off from the ground level and work their way up to a professional driver. So this gave you a really good behind the scenes element to show you the trials and hurdles that drivers would face throughout their Formula 1 career. And at the time this was a relatively new idea that was being added into F1 games at the time, as mostly games before, even going back to the likes of the PS1, which the PS1 had an incredible amount of F1 games as well, and most of them were brilliant to play, but they focused just more on racing and not really the development around the teams or the actual drivers themselves. Whereas more later adaptations on the PS2 and even the modern consoles have more of a simulation type element. So this here, along with Formula 1 2004, was one of the very few games at the start to really start to implement all those simulation elements into Formula 1 games. So you had access to all of the branded and licensed teams within the Formula 1 season from that time period, alongside all of the registered drivers that were driving for the teams at that time also. And the game offered up a lot of different gameplay modes, plus it was also available to play online through the NetPlay feature, which again was a very early online concept for the PlayStation 2 that you could play against other gamers online. A lot of it really depended on your internet connection to see whether you could get online or not. For most cases, with most gamers, that wouldn't really have been too much of an issue, as most people wouldn't have played online games in those days on consoles, as it was relatively a new thing. So for most people, they would just play offline and play through the likes of the campaigns and other gameplay modes like the time trials and career modes and etc. And the game itself got generally favourable reviews in various magazines, praising it for its gameplay style, the simulation and tactics elements of the career modes. But where the game really did shine was in its visual presentation, as a lot of the Formula 1 games at that time, especially on the PS2, were some of the most graphically impressive racing games on the system at that time, that were well up there with even the Gran Turismo series of games, and you can see that from the visual representation of the graphics. The F1 games truly were groundbreaking in terms of their visuals. Even back then on the PS2, they were definitely beautiful to look at and even to play. The handling even in the game as well is very refined and very thought out, and it feels very responsive, and for the time felt also very realistic. And what was cool about these type of games is that they also utilised the same sound effects from the original cars of that time. As with more modern Formula 1 games, and even with Formula 1 itself, they've done away with all of those big engines, so you don't have those unique sounds of V8s and all those other type of engines that you would have had in Formula 1 back in the day, as they've been replaced with a lot smaller engines and even more quieter sounds. So to get a feel of that nostalgia, playing games like this will bring that all back to you. So it was fun to play that even with this experience. The game is fun to play, although it was kind of criticised in some ways as being somewhat too easy in terms of its gameplay. As compared to other F1 games, it was definitely a lot easier to win races, but it really all boils down to players' individual tactics and gameplay styles to determine the overall outcomes. And as each gradual release of the F1 games on the PS2, there was gradual improvement. You could even see that with later games like Formula 1 2006 and so on. They would always add in various different elements to enhance the gameplay and features. But F105 is definitely in that middle ground of some of the best racers on the system in terms of its visuals and its gameplay style. It is easy to pick up and play, it's easy to get into, and it's definitely one of the most visually stunning racing games on the system, hands down. You can clearly see that by the visuals themselves. They really are incredible to look at. If you do like F1 racing games, you can definitely have a look at the F1 series on the PlayStation 2, even going back to the PS1, as they had some incredible titles, and this one here is right up there among the best of them for its time, and is well worth having a playthrough. Even from my own personal experience going back and playing this, my youngest brother was a massive F1 fan back in the day, and he had a load of F1 games for not just the PlayStation 1, but he had a ton of them for the PS2 as well, and he did have this one, and playing it when making this video brought all of those memories back, and I've forgotten how good the game really is and how simple it is to pick up and play. As with a lot of more modern games, even though they are really good, the one thing I don't like personally about a lot of the more modern games is there's so many altercations in terms of the controls and the setups, and they've made it almost impossible for an absolute newbie to come in and to just literally pick up a game and play and just start driving, which for most of us, that's all we really want to do. You want the quickest route to get started and just enjoy the experience, but instead now more modern games, they put you through all of these hurdles and trials just to get started, so that can quickly turn you off. But at least with this game, it is simplistic F1 goodness pretty much as it is. So for that alone, if you want to play and feel that nostalgia again of old school F1 games the way they should have been made, and to see them in action, there's no harm in trying Formula 1 2005. It will bring back all of those old memories, especially if you do like these type of games. And I would love to know your thoughts on Formula 1 2005 for the PlayStation 2, and what your thoughts of it from back in the day. Did you enjoy playing it? Do you enjoy F1 games also? And I'd love to know your stories on them, so be sure to share them down in the comments below. And if you'd like to see more type of content around similar type of racing games that were also released on the PS2, make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell to be updated when future videos are released. And if you want to see more videos on similar type of racing games also released on the PS2, then be sure to check out the playlist here on screen to see more of those games in action. So head on over and check those videos out, and I will see you all in the next one.